Hey everyone, Curse Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted, and here we have Aragorn the Uniter, a donation deck from Isabella. I hope you don't mind, I'm going to be a little bit half in the sun. This is kind of an early video. I was gone this weekend doing the RC, the Regional Championship. I did very well, it was modern, and I would say I hit the top 20%, and you know, that's really, really good. I wish I did better, but getting good at Magic and going to tournaments, especially 2-day tournaments, is like, it's really hard. So I'm very proud of myself and very happy to have done it. But you're always left with the feeling you want to have done more. You want to have won. You want to, succeed a little harder. But let's take a look at the deck we're talking about today. Isabella says, "Hi, me again. Pulled an Aragorn and immediately thought about brewing him. And I'd like a second opinion on my list. Definitely going for a human kindred theme, but I want a high density of multicolor spells to trigger as many abilities as I can per spell. No real cost limit this time, just no reserved list cards. We can definitely work with that, Isabella, and I'm excited to take a look at Aragorn. This is a creature with a lot of really interesting abilities, and I have friends who've tried them, in like modern and other formats. Very, very cool creature. And so let's get right into it. If you'd like to take a look at the deck list we're talking about today, or if you'd like to submit your own deck list to me so that I can make a video assisting your deck, please check the video description down below. So who is Aragorn the Uniter, and why are they our commander? Aragorn the Uniter is a 4-color red, green, white, blue, so everything but black, human noble, 5/5. He's got 4 abilities that are all kind of the same, but do different things. So whenever you cast a white spell, you create a 1/1 human soldier. Whenever you cast a blue spell, you scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, Aragorn does 3 damage to target opponent. And whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4. So straightforwardly, there is like a bit of a hierarchy in a way with this creature. Well, we go from 1 to 4. I'm not sure if this is meant to be thematic. I love Lord of the Rings, I've read many times, but I'm not sure what the 1 to 4 is. Regardless, it's here to kind of give us a soft sense of what the power level of each ability is. White being the weakest one, traditionally, and green being the strongest one here. I would say you're going to be probably the best off leaning on the green and the red one. Giving +4/+4 is an enormous bonus, right? And 3 damage is direct, just a little less than 10% of an opponent's health, which is also very, very good. Scry 2 is very strong. There's sometimes colloquially Scry 2 is thought of as almost as powerful as a single draw. That's not necessarily true, but it's there. An important thing about Scry 2 is Scry gets better and better the more times you do it without shuffling your deck, and that's something we should be kind of keeping an eye on. And though the white one is technically the weakest, I do like that it creates board presence, which we can then use the +4/+4 on. I think we generally want to, with a commander like this, play him out and try to trigger that ability as many times as possible. So let's take a look at the deck list itself. And there's a lot to like already. We have nearly a completely multicolored deck with a few single colored cards that are just there for their sheer power level, which is exactly how I would like to build it. We're at 36 lands, we could go up to 37 or 38 pretty easily, but our curve is just really nice. We go up to 5, we have 1/7 mana at Titanic, Ultimatum, which is an incredibly powerful card and very nice finisher for the deck. Meanwhile, 5, we've only got a few here, and at 4, we're kind of low, which is really nice because once again, Aragorn is our commander, 4 mana, and we do really want to to send Aragorn out and make the most of that ability. So, with that in mind, what are the things that kind of just immediately pop out to me? And there are like a few things that catch my eye. But one of the main ones is that we have a few cards here that feel like they're trying to figure out a direction for this deck, and I don't think they're pulling as much as we'd like. So something Isabella said that, let's see, definitely going for a human kindred theme. And so here we have Kindred Discover. But if you do what I did, let's go to subtype, we can see we only have 16 humans. Now, note that obviously Aragorn himself creates human tokens, and I believe we have another one. Torrens also creates human tokens. Faramir also creates human tokens. Just want to make sure. Hero Precinct 1 creates human tokens. And Eowyn creates human tokens. Okay, let's go back. So it's a little more than we like. We have 4th Aaron Lingas that also creates human tokens. So we have a little more than it appears. But if we're being generous, every Kindred deck has that, right? Every Kindred deck will try to make tokens or enable creating more of its type. So even with that bonus, we're still looking at a deck that has about 17, 18, 19, I'd say, human generation cards or human cards. So at the moment, I'm still feeling a bit low on that number. If we want to go into that direction, and I think that would be a great direction to go into, we should go just a little further, get a few more cards here or there. I didn't want to get too many cards to suggest on just the human kindred, but I do believe we could get just a little further. Another one of the same kind that is really catching my attention is Stormkiln Artist. So this is a card that not only is not a human, but is a Magecraft card. A very, very strong Magecraft card that creates treasures as we cast our instants and sorceries. And this is another direction that we could go into. And I actually do have a side card, I think it'll be the last card I'll talk about in my editions, that talks about a direction to go in that, and where we can go more into instants and sorceries. But it's kind of noteworthy that we're kind of pulled into both of these directions. I think if I were in your position, I would kind of try to pick one to go towards a little more. At least so that we can kind of slim down on one direction or another and improve the other direction. This right now feels like we're playing kind of a middling game of both, whereas, you know, if we went further into either direction, our deck would get considerably stronger. Especially when we have such strong creatures like Eowyn Shield Maiden, which is, I would argue, one of the strongest human kindred cards that you could play. Alright, so what else catches my eye? Okay. This isn't as fun, but I always feel like it's worth saying. We have a lot of charms. I understand that charms are fun. I do get this. I definitely, when I was younger, my goodness, I started that sentence that way. When I was a younger Magic player, I definitely had that kind of dream of like, hey, what if you made a deck only using charms? And the further we get, and the more charms we get, the more and more this is possible. So, like, you know, I get the appeal. However, the majority of charms are they're just not good, right? They're just not good cards. There are 3 middling effects working together, and you just gotta hope, right? You gotta just kind of hope that you can get one of these effects off. So looking at something like Bant Charm, right? We got destroy target artifact. That's fair. We can get that most of the time. Put target creature on bottom of its owner's library. Most of the time we can get that off. And counter target instant spell. That's a lot harder. We have to hold up mana and hope we get away with it. So that one I don't like as much. Excuse me. Using these cards, Bant Charm especially, for example, we have to kind of rely on this card being available, targets to hit, and those targets to be worth hitting, right? Because kind of the main thing about a card like this is that we're looking at the green, white, blue. Let's go back and look at Aragorn. So what does green, white, blue say to us? We get a 1/1, we get to scry 2, and we get +4/+4. These are really, really good. And what's really cool as an instant is that since you do it in the order... No, because you have to target, sorry. Whenever you guess... No, they're triggered abilities. That should be fine. So once they go on to... I'm not sure. Do you have to pick a target of a triggered ability? I think so, right? When it goes onto the stack. Or does it go on the stack twice? Whenever you cast... No, you have to target. Sorry, I'm having a rules question in my mind. I was so inundated with rules questions over the weekend. My Magic brain is kind of actually dead. So let's go back to the original thought. these three abilities are just really nice to tack onto something. And we really like, getting them and getting to do what we want with them. However, here we are, and we're playing kind of a clunky card to enable that. There's 3 mana, it's in 3 different colors, and we're holding up mana to either instant speed counter a spell, or to just kind of put our opponents back a little bit, whereas otherwise we are very much so an aggressive board-based deck. And this kind of applies to a certain degree to all of the charms, right? Some are definitely better than others. Just Guy Charm, once again, we're looking at putting a creature on top of something. The 4 damage to target opponent, we don't really care for that. The spell already does 3 damage, we don't really need to do that. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain lifelink. That's at least on theme a little bit, but the other ones are just fine. Likewise, Naya Charm, 3 damage to a creature, I guess it's removal, but you're overpaying a bolt. Return target card, it's an Ewit, I guess that's okay, but you'd rather the body, who's also a human, or tap down all creatures. That could be nice, but you see, all of these things are just kind of okay. I'm going to leave it at that. I understand that I'm going to have a few suggestions for 2-color spells at the end, and I do understand that people really do love charms, and I don't want to kind of take that away from you. I really don't like them, and I would cut almost every single one, with the exceptions being like Boros Charm, and maybe Izzet Charm. Just 2 damage for draw 2, discard 2 isn't terrible. Alright, I didn't put these in my additions, but I do also feel that our card draw is a little low. Expressive Iteration is not card draw. It's you need to be in a very specific point of the game in a deck like this in order for it to be card draw. Specifically, you need to have not made a land drop and hope for it to reveal a land, because that'll be as if you drew 2, or later in the game where you have enough mana that the card you exile you can actually cast. Only then is it card advantage, and even then it's a very small amount. Kindred Discovery, I like it if we have enough humans, but in the meantime, we could definitely play, I think I've suggested at least one, but we could definitely also play things like what is it, the Wild Speaker. Let's don't look at this. Let's say Wild Speaker. Yeah, Return of the Wild Speaker, sorry. Drawing cards. Oh, it's non-humans. Never mind. Don't ever ask me anything about Magic, clearly. I think Harmonize, I think any of our Beast Whisperer and the like that draws cards, even is a Toski, our Squirrel that gets us cards on damage. I don't think probably welcoming Vampire or Takazia is welcome, both of which because we can create 1/1s to generate card advantage. Cards like this, I didn't put these too much in the side because I've got other things I wanted to kind of talk about, but having some card draw like this could be very, very good. It's just dependent on which direction we take the build into. All right. That's generally my thoughts on the list itself. I do really, really like it. I think it's in a very good place. Perhaps this could be Bant Ascendancy. I think maybe, once again, if we're going into a more creature base rather than a more magecraft base, Jeskai Ascendancy gets much, much better as we are playing more and more non-creatures. So I would suggest a Storm version of Aragorn can be very, very good, but we're not currently playing that. And if you want to play that, I would definitely play that. That looks like a lot of fun, but that's just not what this deck is right now. So perhaps this deck needs to be split into two halves, the Human Kindred half and the Storm half. And if you'd ask me, I'd be super down for the Storm half. The Human Kindred deck is going to be very, very strong and very fun, but it's also going to be something a lot of people play. But Aragorn Storm sounds like, to me, a different kind of deck. That's a lot of fun. I'm going to keep that in mind. Maybe that's something I can build sometime. Everything else I think is very, very straightforward. Artifacts, I think we could go a little deeper if we wanted to into equipment, if that's what we wanted. But as it is now, I think this is fine. The rest of these I think are very, very good. Outside of the charms, I think a lot of our creatures and cards are particularly strong. Archaeo Master is the last one that I'm going to pick on and say, hey, it's a little weird that this is here. Once again, this belongs more in the Storm deck than in the creature deck. Even with Human as a subtype, I think, at 4 mana, getting a charm back, that's spending 7 mana to get, you know, another Scry 2 trigger, and then whatever triggers come off the charm. I think that's a little too much. I don't like it, and I think we could do better. All right, let's go into some additions, starting with Pillar of the Parns. I think this is a card that I'm fairly certain you're not playing. Yeah. This is a very, very easy addition. The majority of our deck is already multicolored. Might as well have a land that taps for all those colors, and you could just add this in going up to 37 lands without much of a problem. Now, if you built this deck a little differently and you started cutting a lot of the multicolor spells, especially if you went in the Storm direction, this wouldn't be as good, but in the current build, I think it's very, very strong. After this, I have 2 suggestions, especially in the kind of hybrid colors. Now, neither of these are humans, but I still think they're very, very strong. And these are Ginny Fey and Rigo Streetwise Mentor. So Ginny Fey I really like because, one, it has both green, red, and white, which I think are the strongest ones. I feel the blue is the weakest one personally, but still, Ginny Fey is great because you can just spend 3 green mana to get her out, and you will still get the benefits of the other colors. That's something I really like with these hybrid cards, and something I would think about, especially actually in either version of the deck, is to find more hybrid cards, because they take off a big burden off of your mana, and they kind of transfer that while still giving you the advantage. But what I do like about Ginny Fey is that not only is she just a good card, she also turns our 1/1 human tokens into much better creatures. And as 2/2s with haste, we transform our what I would consider to be weakest ability off of Aragorn into one of the strongest ones. 2/2s with haste, especially if we could make a lot of them, we can get away with making a very big and active army. And even if we are in humans and we're turning our humans into cats, I think we're still happy because we're literally doubling its power and toughness. But beyond that, I do think this also affects our other tokens. So if we create, you know, clue tokens, treasure tokens, anything like that, if we play around in that zone, especially in the Magecraft or the Storm version, making them into 2/2s, like if you could make like a bunch of clues and now they're 2/2 hasty green cats, you're going to be very happy and it's going to be very strong, and it'll allow you to finish games in very, very quick succession. The 3/1 dogs are fine. I think you don't want them as much, but they are pretty strong, especially if you're working at instant speed and it's not your turn, then you're probably happier with the dogs. Rigo, likewise, 3 colors while only being white. Rigo is interesting because works in a different way than Ginny Fey, where we do want those 1/1 humans, and we want to attack with them to start drawing us cards. The shield counter is just kind of nice, don't worry too much about it. This is just kind of a nice draw engine that will also trigger the 2 other parts of our commander really, really nicely. So I do like this. I think this is an easy inclusion, even though, once again, not a human. Something new that I think definitely belongs here is War Leader's Call, even though immediately it does not work with Rigo. I feel like maybe I should have double-checked this list, but I do like all of these cards individually. War Leader's Call, and to a lesser extent, Impact Tremors are both cards that I would consider in certain builds of this deck. War Leader's Call works really well in both versions of the deck, because +1/+1 is just generally good, and creatures ATBing dealing 1 damage to each opponent is also very, very good. Now, on the Human Kindred side, you're just happy because your humans are stronger, and now as tokens come into play, you're dealing damage. But on the Storm side, you now have a bit of a payoff for casting a lot of white cards in a row, or using things like the Goblin Storm card that creates goblins 2 at a time, 1 at a time, 2 at a time, or the Chatter Storm, which also creates squirrels 1 at a time, I believe. Let's find out. 1 at a time. All right. With those in mind, this is a really good Storm payoff while still being just generally good in your deck, because that damage will pay off. And while we're on our way to that damage, just having all of our creatures be stronger is going to make a very, very big difference. So, big fan of this card. Great art, too. I do really like it. All right, let's talk about mana a little bit. So looking at the deck, I mean, let's go back for a second. One of the things I've been thinking of that, people say people say grab what just say what you want and no budget. I'm always left saying, okay, let's play some fetch lands, right? And this is maybe a side effect of my modern Magic sensibilities, where I like fetch lands quite a bit, and I think fetch lands are very strong. But in Commander, in 4 colors, I think they're almost a necessity, especially with triomes, which you are playing. The power level of each of those fetch lands is incredibly high. So if you truly are no budget, if you are playing on MTGO, if you are proxying, if you're doing anything like that, I genuinely think it is worth playing those fetch lands if you can afford them. However, if you can't, these 2 cards, Prismatic Omen and Chromatic Lantern, are the cards I would suggest. Now, Prismatic Omen used to be very, very expensive, but then it got reprinted in the Enchanting Tales, and I think at 74 cents, it's definitely worth picking up as just another thing that says, hey, from now on, your mana's fixed. We're playing a very color-intensive deck, and being able to play those colors at your leisure is very important. Likewise, as we all know, Chromatic Lantern does the same thing. It just got reprinted. It's about $2 or $3. I think it's very worth it if you don't have it. Now, I feel like sometimes this is the kind of thing I hear from comments or friends or people I play Magic with, which the response to this is, but Cursed, I don't have mana problems. I get what I'm always able to cast the colors. We get enough tap lands, we get enough dual lands. Why would I need these cards? I don't believe you. I know that's kind of a harsh thing to say, but I have a hard time with that argument, because it's like, but you don't though, right? In a deck like this, with this many different mana symbols, you have to have a very, very clean collection of lands in the right order to not be discouraged or stopped from casting certain spells. Like, I play a 4-color deck, and I play it with fetch lands, tri lands, and I do play a lot of, this is my Blink deck, my Phyrexian Angel. Why can't I remember her name? She's gonna be mad at me. But my Blink deck that has a bunch of creatures that search and ramp, I'm constantly inundated with lands, but in those early few turns, I feel the effects of this. So a deck like this, I feel like you definitely feel the effects of this. If we look into our color breakdown, right, we've got 52% white, 42%, these pictures, yeah, we've got we've got even, that's what I'm looking to say. We have an even distribution of colors, which is kind of the worst, actually. You kind of want one way more than the other, right? Because it lets you kind of go into one color. Like, for example, in my Blink deck, I want a lot more green, because the green enables me to get the lands to get to the other colors. Here we have an equal distribution, and we're just kind of in a bad situation because of it, because all of our lands, all of our spells, they all have to do so much heavy lifting. So even if you will be able to cast every spell in your deck and every spell in your hand in a game, you might have to do it in an order you don't want to, or wait on cards in order to cast them. And I think just having access to Prismatic Omen and Chromatic Lantern will just really take a bit of the burden off of that. Just make it a little easier to get away with having all of this mana. Chromatic Lantern at least taps for mana as well, so it's a mana rock. I think it makes things a lot easier. It will also be, these cards can be targeted, so we do still want a really good land base, but I still suggest them quite a bit. So going to card draw in a way, or card advantage and mana, we're looking at Elven Cores. Now, obviously this is a Lord of the Rings card, which is a lot of fun, but I do really like this here, especially if we go more into the Kindred, Human Kindred side, or just the creature side. Having all of these tokens being able to tap for mana, and then being able to cast those creatures off the top of our deck is going to be very, very good. So I think this is a very strong inclusion. It is 4 mana, which is the same as our commander, but I think it's worth it to play it. All right. Here's something that I was thinking about in the creature side that I really got going, but I didn't really find much else that really spoke to me like this, but Crystal Shard profoundly speaks to me. So what's going on here? Crystal Shard is a colorless artifact that allows us to bounce creatures unless their creature's controller pays 1. Now, what a lot of people in more competitive or like stronger level decks know is that you tend to more often target your own creatures with this spell than your opponent's creatures. When you're playing stacks and you're really pressuring your opponent's mana totals, this card is very, very good, especially if you could tap it, untap it, use it a bunch of times. However, it is just as good as a 1 mana repeatable bounce your own creature. The reason I really like that here is that I want to keep casting these creatures over and over again, because all of these creatures have a phenomenal kind of like, not an ETB, but on-cast ability attached to all of them. And looking through all of these, like, you know, we have some cards like Ewit that for sure we wanted to come in and out, and then we have some creatures that, you know, just have static abilities, or we just have, you know, when they're in play or tapped abilities or things like that. And those are a little trickier, but if we just keep taking them out and putting them back in, we have a free chance to kind of regain those abilities. So like, for example, General Ferris Rockerick is really good as just a creature that just stay on and we just keep casting multicolored creatures and works with our commander. But if we have nothing else going on, bouncing him into our hand and playing him again will at least net us 3 damage and an extra token. And if he's out, bouncing in any other of our creatures, for example, like Selvala, will get us even more tokens, so we'll get 2 creature tokens, and then we will get +4/+4. All for the low price of 1 blue mana and tapping an artifact. So I do like this. I think it's very strong, and it can be used offensively as well. Something else that I think is notably missing, and I talk about this a lot in my videos about doubling things, and I have 2 cards here that are copy triggered ability. Now, I want to include both because they kind of work differently, and I want you to decide on which one, because I don't like running too many. But Strionic Resonator is the easy one. It does exactly what you want it to do. It copies triggered ability you control. So whenever you cast a creature and you want to just give another +4/+4, you get a bonus of it. That's fine. It's not the greatest thing because you're only copying one of those triggered abilities, but the +4/+4 is really good. Or the ability to do an additional 3 damage is also very, very good. That's not including all the other triggered abilities you have in your deck, that just having another copy like Ewit, things like that, you'll be very happy with. Lithiform Engine on the other side, I do really like, especially in the Storm version, but here as well, where every single one of these modes is usable in the deck. Copying the activated or triggered ability is just really nice. At 2 mana, it's very easy. Copying the instant or sorcery spell is pretty interesting for a few of the ones you can have that will get you a lot of advantage. But I do really also like copying the permanent spell, because you do have a lot of very, very good permanent spells, and you can take advantage of them quite a bit. So all 3 modes I think are very good, easy to play, and you can get pretty far with them. Finally, I have a few cards here that I just want to suggest as alternatives to charms. Once again, it's not that I hate charms. Well, I guess I hate charms, but I think there's a few other things I would play first before playing the 3 mana charms, because I just find them to be clunky. 3 mana is a lot of mana. If we can cut it down to 2, for example, we're going to have an easier time. So one of them is Lightning Helix, just very clean, 3 damage, 3 life. Much like Bolt, it'll destroy a lot of relevant creatures. It'll kill a lot of relevant commanders. You'll be very, very happy with that. With the bonus triggers of 3 additional damage, and a 1/1 makes this a very, very efficient spell. After that, Eladamri's Call, especially in the Human Kindred side, but even in the other side, very, very good card. Once again, we're getting that 1 white 1/1 and +4/+4, which is something that we really like. We almost want to cast this on our own turn for the +4/+4, which is very, very strong, so that we can go in and get an extra attacking. But still, instant speed tutor in a creature deck is very powerful. Same colors, Sundering Growth. This was another hybrid card that kind of caught my eye that I thought was just worth thinking about. What's nice is that it always creates a creature to populate, but you do have much better creatures to populate, like the 4/4s, or if you have Ginny Fae and the like. And destroying target artifact or enchantment is just nice. Decisive Denial is another one. There's another one in there that has that fight. It might be the Temur one, but I do like the 2-mana fight a little more, and I do like the counter spell that's just non-creature. I think this is very, very good. Both the fights in the Charm and Decisive Denial are very, very strong, because by being green, you will give a creature +4/+4 before the fight happens. So you can grow a creature into fighting form, I guess, in order for it to do a fight without worrying of having to fight with your Aragorn or something like that, and being blown up by removal. So this, I think, is very, very good, and that other side to it. It's not counter target instant spell, for example, which I find to be too narrow. This can counter, board clears and the like, so I do like it. And as I've said before, holding up 2 mana is much easier than holding up 3 mana. Another one, Rip Apart, very similar. You can kind of see a theme where I want most of these to be removal, because that's the cleanest way to kind of ensure that they have use. Rip Apart is sorcery speed, but 3 damage to creature or planeswalker. Once again, it's a bolt. It should remove most things, but the destroy target artifact or enchantment is just very, very good. And then I think this is the last one, Reborn Hope. This one's just cute. I just saw it, I thought of it, I went, you can just play this, especially you're heavy in multicolor. It's a 2 mana, especially in the non-creature side, it's 2 mana. It's another storm account. It just pulls back any of your non-creature spells. Actually almost any card in your deck, because so much of it is multicolored. You're very happy to get it back. Especially something like cast Manamorphose, cast this, getting back the Manamorphose is a lot of triggers for really easy, advantage. Though there's much better things you can do with Manamorphose, mind you. Oh no, I had one more, and that's Domri's Ambush, another fight that I really like. This is actually a bite, which is even better. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. A very, very good bite. Growing a creature, getting 3 damage in, getting +4/+4, getting rid of a blocker, and swinging is a really, really proactive turn, and just a 2 mana. So I like it quite a bit. Then, this was my final suggestion. I really thought this was interesting for our more storm side, where, whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you flip a coin. If you lose the flip, return that spell to its owner's hand. If you win the flip, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this is a commander usually, but I do really like it in the 99 of certain decks, and this is one of them. One of the things I was thinking of is on certain spells, or any spell, sometimes we actually just want to cast it again more than we want to. This is actually a pretty bad example. Let's say just anything. Sometimes we just want the triggers more than we want the card itself. So sometimes we might just be like, okay, we just want the triggers for extra damage. Use Boros Charm, deal 4 damage, get a 1/1, do 4 damage. Now, or 3 damage, I should say. So with Croc, we can cast this, flip it, and either we get an additional 4 damage, or it goes back in our hand and we still get the triggers here, right? And this applies to any of these, right? We can just keep repeatedly getting the triggers every time we fail, and every time we succeed, well, we just get a free spell out of it. So it's kind of a win-win scenario. Now, obviously, we have to keep spending mana, so the best ones are Deflecting Swat and Fierce Guardianship, mainly Deflecting Swat, because all this means is every single time you lose the flip, you do an additional 3 damage. So you almost want to lose the flip because it's still free. So you cast this, you lose the flip, and you do 3 damage, then you cast it again, hopefully you lose the flip, do another 3 damage, and when you win the flip, hopefully if you have 2 targets to change the ability, right? This also applies to Fierce Guardianship. If you play the other ones, it'll work as well. I think the white one is creatures you control have indestructible, and the green one I think is Fog, which doesn't work as well because it'll keep giving +4/+4, but then it'll prevent all combat damage. Let's find out if that's true. Oh, are they all not all called that? Let's see. Let's copy that. I thought they were the Guardianship cycle for a second. Yeah, they're not. Obscuring Haze, yeah, it's just your opponent's control. This is perfect. So you can even play this, the cheapest one of them all, and just keep playing it over and over, getting +4/+4 every time you have, and eventually when it resolves, it doesn't matter. That can be fun. There's probably other ways to kind of abuse that, but I saw Croc and I immediately thought this is a fun card for a deck like this, especially late game when you have tons and tons of mana and you just don't care, you're ready to keep casting spells over and over again. And that's generally the things I have to say about the deck. Thank you so much, Isabella. I think this is a great deck. I really do enjoy it. I like where this is, and I do want to pick a side, right? Like I want to either go Human Kindred or I want to go Storm. I'm gonna leave that up to you, but if you do make it Storm, send it my way again after you change it, because I would be super into it. But if you do make it Humans, send it my way again. I'd love it. Thank you so much. Sorry for not having a video yesterday. I was exhausted from the tournament, and I'm just happy to be back and be looking at decks again. So thank you so much, and good luck. Thank you so much for watching. This video is brought to you by viewers like you and people on my Patreon. If you'd like to send me another draft of this deck, or any deck, there is a link in the video description down below. And if you'd like to make your deck one of my donation decks I work on, there's a link there too. Finally, if you'd like to like, comment, subscribe, I would be very appreciative. It helps the channel quite a bit. Thank you, and good luck in brewing and building.